Hey yo, good morning. Tuesday morning. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. I've got a really juicy eye infection, as you can tell. It's much better than it was. It was I basically couldn't open it for most of the weekend, so it's doing good today. But yeah, so lots to do. We're going to start a new painting today. We're going to do a warm-up. Going to paint another dagger, different material today. Yo, Izzy, what's going on? Guten Morgen. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. Yeah, we're going to start a new... yeah, that's a good eye infection, huh? Honestly, it's the best it's looked since like Thursday, so you can only imagine what it was like for the rest of the weekend. But yeah, so anyway, we're going to do a new environment illustration. Sort of been building up to do like one that I'm going to spend a little bit more time on. And I made like a little 3D base for this one. So I'll get into that a little bit when it's time. Just sort of show you what I did. But there was a bit of like prep work to get it to where it is. But yeah, I can show you how that's done. So yeah, we're gonna warm up again with a dagger. I think I really enjoyed doing the obsidian dagger last week. So for the warm-ups this week, I'm going to do like a dagger a day basically, and choose like a different idea or a different material each day. So we did obsidian last week, and I'm going to do ice today because I was having a bit of a laugh with my wife. We were talking about, you know, how to get away with the perfect murder, and obviously we were like, oh yeah, you need the ice knife, because once it melts, there's no murder weapon. So it's the perfect crime. So we'll do that this morning. But anyway, yeah, I'll go onto the Photoshop view so that you don't have to look at my juicy eye infection anymore. So yeah, we'll start with the warm-up then. Plotting atrocities. Yeah, I mean, you know, we periodically talk about how to get away with the perfect murder. It's just how we roll. Is your vision okay? Yeah, it's just obscured a little bit like just a little bit blurry. But it's fine otherwise. It's just sort of irritating. It just feels like I've got something in my eye, you know. And I do have like a sort of a blocked like duct or something that's just giving me some irritation. It's not uncommon for me to have an eye infection though. It's usually like every couple of months I manage to get another one. I'm just I honestly just touch my eyes all the time. It's a bad habit. I don't really realize I'm doing it. So that's why. But when I was learning to drive, for example, when I was a teen, I sort of developed a tick of touching my nose whenever I was like anxious when I was driving. And I still kind of do it to this day. If I'm like anxious about something or if I'm thinking about something, I'll touch my face, I'll touch my eyes. And I think it is the cause of the eye infections a lot of the time, where I've just like just touching my eyes with like grubby hands, you know. So it's a thing. It's a thing. So there you go, bit of trivia for you. So yeah, I'm going to do this kind of like ice dagger. I've called it Winter's Bite. And but yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about the new environment that we're going to do today. I spent some time yesterday doing the sort of preliminary work for it. And yeah, honestly, it's going to be cool. And I'm going to spend like a bit more time on it, I think, and sort of detail it out. Even potentially there might be some sort of like character part to it, but we'll see how we go. At the very least, it's going to be a little bit more fleshed out of a piece. So that should be fun. Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Devon. There'll be ice on the hill. Yeah, iceberg, right ahead. How you doing, dude? You good? As good as one can be? Better even? Sorry, let's make a mask for this before I forget, and then... Got knocked on my ass by some illness last week. Oh shit. So playing catch up on work stuff and I had to get some deadlines extended. Oh man. Damn. Yeah, there's something going around for sure. You're not the only one I've heard from that's got KO'd by something recently. Are you feeling better now? Oh, we're glad you're feeling a bit better. Yeah, I don't know if you were here at the very beginning. I'll show you on camera. I got the gnarliest eye infection. Like, big, juicy eye right now. This is honestly the best it's been since Thursday. It was like, basically sealed shut. It's pretty gross. So yeah, we're kicking off with a different dagger today, and then we're gonna get into a new environment. I am pretty excited about this one. So yeah, ice knife. Perfect crime can only be committed with the ice knife. Beating me up, yeah. Yeah, bruv. Okay, hang on, this needs a little, like, kind of drop shadow underneath it. Give it a bit of placement. But sort of less of a drop shadow, almost like more of a slight reflection of the light coming through the ice, I guess. Yo, Oracle, what's up? How are you doing? Recovering from the flu. Damn, you as well. Everyone's getting sick. I thought I was gonna get sick. I went paintball training on the weekend with my team, and it was friggin' freezing. Absolutely freezing. So, and it was in the wet, and I had to drive up there at like 4 a.m. in the morning, and then like train all day and then drive back. So it was pretty long day, and I was like, I'm defo gonna get sick, and then I didn't. So yeah. Keep it big. Basically, if you catch yourself zooming in, just zoom back out. Save zooming in for later. I would say like the number one best thing that you can do to improve the look of your artwork, if you're struggling, is to not zoom in. Zooming in is the killer of the impression. Should really only be done when it's absolutely necessary to do so. It's hard not to zoom in, but honestly, it does make a big difference. It'll stop you like overdoing things that actually don't need touching as well. When you zoom in, there is the tendency, because it looks really unfinished when you're zoomed in really far, to start over rendering everything, and it can really give you that impression of like, oh shit, there's so much to do on this piece, blah blah blah, XYZ. And you'd be surprised how much you really don't need to focus on these things. Yeah, I think it's not fun to do though. Honestly. It's fun to do at the end for like an hour or so and just go around and sort of touch things up, but I honestly don't feel like zooming in and rendering is that much fun at all, really. Doing studies for the Warhammer piece, I'm still trying to learn some more traditional styles, working styles, because the default way I work is quite digital. Oh yeah, what's what you trying to achieve? Man, where's the brush? Come on. Carve out big shapes, get that loose painterly style. Yeah. Tell you, if you can nail the art of going general to specific with your shapes and your decision making and even your brush size and details, and in turn zooming in and stuff like that, you can you'll really take your stuff a long way. Can actually sort of sort out everything in the image at the very beginning. Like for me, I try and get the impression of what I want to do down as quickly as possible using like the biggest shapes, and try and be sort of a graphic representation of the lighting and so on. A really bold sort of statement with that in the beginning, and then essentially all you're doing is carrying that through with a bit more detail and thought as you go forward. Yeah. Definitely less noodle render. I honestly really dislike the idea of spending like, 40, 50, 60 hours on something. It's really not something I want to do much of anymore. Don't like this bit. Get it out. Yeah, I think it's just trying to do things based on what it looks like if you sort of slightly squint your eyes, and it just coalesce into like a big light shape, a big shadow shape. What do those two things look like interacting with each other? And then as you do progress it a bit further, like what are the sort of the least amount of marks that you can use to retain the impression that you set up in the beginning, and just keep standing back from it, like. I'm working on a painting right now with dense foliage, and it's a total mindfuck. Yeah. Yep. I believe. Foliage is tough. There's like a sort of a layering to it that if you don't get right, it looks flat. It's quite hard to describe, but I've definitely struggled with that. Yo, Cookie. Morning. Morning. Welcome. How are you doing? And Zikawa, how are you doing? Good to see you too. So we're just doing the kind of warm-up portion of the stream where today we are doing a dagger. Last time I did a sort of an obsidian dagger. That today we're doing ice knife. I'm just trying out some different brushes here, trying to get the impression that I'm after with this one, and then we're going to get into a new environment illustration. And today yesterday in fact I built some 3D for that as a base, something very simple. I'll show you how I did it. We'll talk about the reasons for that, and yeah, then we'll get into the illustration. I'm excited about it, honestly. It's cool. It's very cool. Hey, morning, Josh. Yeah, it was great to see you on Saturday too, my guy. Really nice to catch up. No, I know I haven't heard anything from Alan yet. I think he said like hopefully by the weekend. So I will wait until then. Yeah, that would generally be my similar thought process as well. Trying to sort of unify back some of these planes actually, because it feels a little bit disjointed altogether. And then, yeah, a little bit all over the place. But where the fuck is it? There we go. Too much going on. Too much going on. If that doesn't happen, I'll be shocked, to be honest. I don't think any of the others out of the Div 4 team should be any higher at the moment. I don't know about Div 2 squatters. I don't know who's staying from last year. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think it's a fair assessment. Right, let's unify some of these shapes together a bit. I think it's got like a little bit too disjointed. And I'm like losing the ice impression a little bit. In some places it's nice, in other places it's not working so much. Language? Yep. I'm gonna get banned. Banneth. I would like to try and get Corruption to come to Mayhem if you guys come to CPVS a couple of times for some scrims. Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, I'll definitely be up there. You know, the day before, because we play on Sunday, right? So definitely I'll be up there on the Saturday beforehand to train before any tournament. So but yeah, I'm down for some scrims for sure. Okay. Yeah, so this environment we're going to do is kind of based on an area in Path of Exile that I've been playing a lot. It's like a pretty sick kind of area. And yeah, I was thinking about what kind of environment that I wanted to do. You can always stream on Cornhub. Yeah, nice, Josh. I'm down for it. I'm down for it. Yeah, so this environment that we're going to jump onto, I'll sort of get over there in 15 minutes and we'll talk about it some more. But as with the other ones that I've been doing on stream, you know, I've been spending, what, like 2 or 3 streams on a sort of sketch painting kind of deal, and that's been really cool. Enjoyed doing those, but I do want to do one where I spend like a little bit longer on it, and it has like a little bit more of a kind of like base to it. And so that's why I've kind of built this 3D base that I'm going to work with. And yeah, I haven't built something in 3D forever, so I had to dust off my copy of 3D Coat. Yeah, catch you later, Josh. It's good to see you on the weekend, and yeah, I'll be in touch, mate. Seeing if I can get a bit more of a frost thing going on with the handle, because I didn't kind of like where it was going. But yeah, I haven't dusted off 3D Coat in a hot minute. I've not used the program for ages, so it was quite nice going back to it. But man, that program do throw some jank your way sometimes. You need to be a bit patient with it. Like, it's amazingly quick at getting. It's amazingly quick to sort of get painterly, like good painting reference from, because it's sort of quite loose and painterly in the way that you can do things on 3D Coat, and for like what you can get out of it versus the time it takes to get there, it's really still good for that. Like it actually is very cool, and I think equally you can do the same in other 3D programs. Sorry, like you can get something similar if you know like Blender very well, for example. But for me, the navigation in 3D Coat is quite intuitive, and the navigation in Blender is something that I butt heads against the entire time. It's like learning to walk again, you know. It's just like it feels so weird in Blender to me. And like even when I went to get the renders for what I made for today, I was trying to do it in Blender for a while, and the navigation and stuff was really messing me up, and in the end ended up firing up my old PC and using Keyshot to do it. So yeah, I can't show you the Keyshot part of the process because it's on my other PC, but I can show you the 3D part, and then we can go from there. Yeah, I was thinking like, so this part of the daggerite is like sort of frosted, you know, like this, and then I'm thinking like that maybe we have sort of like leather or fur on this top part. ZBrush navigation is abysmal. Yeah. I don't think Blender's is bad. It's just I just can't wrap my head around doing it. I'm so used to it not being like that it's more of a struggle for me. And considering I just wanted to get something like quick, I was like, why am I doing that? So I ended up going on Keyshot, which is very, very simple to use. Very simple. It's a shame I can't port it over to this because I have a license for it on my other PC, but I'm not able to move it over to my laptop, which is annoying. So it stays there forever. Yeah, exactly, Devon. And what I like about Keyshot in that sense is that it's just an HDRI, so you're not able to really place like any very specific lights, but in a way it's quite nice because what I like to get out of it is just sort of an ambient lighting pass and maybe just like a few reflections here and there, but it's much better for me to paint over what I get out of Keyshot because it's so ambient and kind of a global impression, and it just leaves it open to actually then paint over and put the direct lighting in myself, and then I don't have like details that I don't want, or have to spend ages getting the light in the right place, because I do find as well that you light something in Blender and obviously it does a very nice and correct job of it, but sometimes correct isn't great for the impression, and it's like, oh, if I actually want this bit to be lit, it's got to be like this and blah blah blah. You end up having to like change the model or like do other stuff, whereas if I just have like ambient stuff that comes out of Keyshot, it's then very easy to paint direct light on top of it and basically get exactly what I want and not be mucking around with anything else. Jellica, morning. ZBrush used to be my favorite program until they sold out to Maxon. Yeah, I haven't picked up ZBrush in a hot minute. It was cool. The user interface is absolutely diabolical. Absolutely diabolical on ZBrush. I actually hate this knife. That's how the warm-up goes sometimes. It do be like that. It do be like that. Anyone else likes using HDRI and Blender? I just set up a bunch of fill light Maxon has been terrible for ZBrush. None of the updates are interesting. Okay, so that's almost the top of the hour. So we'll wrap this warm-up up. Semi-successful warm-up, this one. I lost a little bit of the feeling of the material overall. And that's kind of impacted the final look somewhat. So whatever, you live, you learn. They don't all go well. And that's why we warm up. How do you feel about January ending finally? It's still not over. It does feel like it's been particularly long. Yeah, I think also because I've not been at work either, so it's I've kind of lost track of like what day it is. The days are kind of somewhat meaningless. You know, they're not punctuated by a working week and a weekend anymore. It's all the same. Mate, I wish I'd taken more time off to reset instead of scrambling for work. Yeah, I mean, it has its downsides, honestly, but I needed some time. I needed some time. Okay. We'll save this. So this was Feb should be better. Yeah, exactly. I got my birthday in Feb. I got my wedding anniversary in Feb. It's my mum's wedding anniversary in February. It's my grand's birthday. Everything happens in Feb. So you're making a good show of it too, doing good personal work and studies. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm really happy that I've kind of doing a bit of a deep dive into environments. It's been quite fun. It's something I've wanted to do for ages and like get better at, and I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of given me a bit of a spark back, let's say, about making artwork. And I do like the idea of, like, you know, getting better at environments. Like, I would like to take on some environment work at some point, you know. When's your birthday? It's the 16th of February, and I will be 39. Kika's birthday in Feb. Nice. None of you are getting presents, just so you know. Yeah, I don't want a fucking present. Are your knees okay? They're actually not. Yeah. I had a big knee injury in the beginning of 2024. I blew out my meniscus and MCL in my right leg, and while it is better now, if I like put pressure down on my toes, you know, like if you're climbing the stairs, I can feel like pressure behind my kneecap, and it's in both knees now as well. But hey, they still work, so we're good. Alright, warm up over. I don't want to look at this dagger anymore. I don't like it. So, let's talk about this image that we're going to start. This is like... I'll go and talk about how we get to this point in a sec. But basically I have a few like renders here. I've got this like very horrible one, but it's necessary. And then these kind of more ambient ones. Well, this more ambient one and this one with a bit more direct light. And I also have clown pass for these and depth pass, which will come into play a bit later, but very handy stuff to have. Especially when working with 3D like this. But how do we set this up, right? How do we set this up? We do this in 3D Coat. And what do I use the clown pass for? Yeah, I'll get to that. We'll talk about the renders in a bit. But yeah, so I use 3D Coat, or had used a lot of 3D Coat in the past, to build what I call like what I'm trying to think. They're basically like sketch models, right? These are 3D models that are really only intended to be like painted over and to give me, you know, a sense of space and perspective. They're not meant to be detailed. They're not meant to be like made in a way that they're useful in any other capacity. Like there's a lot of jank to them, and so on. And yeah, they're basically just sketch models, right? And yeah, the way that I do this is in a program called 3D Coat, which I'll show you now. And there's some amazing tools in there for doing exactly this. And this whole scene is literally just one model repurposed as well, which is a really great thing that you can do. So I build one thing, and then I will kind of warp it, stretch it, cut bits off, put them to like squash them together, etc. And in that way I can build up a whole scene, but because it's one model, it keeps a sort of the same design aesthetic all the way through, and it's really quick for kind of blocking this kind of stuff out. And it really doesn't take a long time to make these kind of janky models. So let's have a look at it. I'll show you in 3D Coat, and then I'll show you how I make it in 3D Coat. So this is the model here in 3D Coat. As you can see, really not complicated, okay, in any way. And actually everything is just this one tower. So this bridge that's here, that you see, this is just the tower squashed together and angled and so on. And then obviously these side towers are just that tower, and then the wall at the back here is again that tower stretched. So very quick, and you can do more than that, but honestly this is all I need to really paint over. And a lot of the architectural details I will be painting into and over, like they're only there as a shape to sort of represent things. On the side of the bridge, for example, like all of this stuff is going to be like bones and rock and so on. So all this geometry is not, it's just there as something to catch the light for now. And all these things on the side of the bridge, like they're also going to be sort of twisted bones and that kind of thing. So anyway, it's very easy for this. You can like slap an HDRI on these. So if I quickly show you, and I go real-time render, there's an HDRI on this that's rendering right now. And you can render out from this, but I actually prefer the look of how Keyshot sort of handles materials and handles the lighting. So I didn't render it in this. Hang on, let me turn that render off because you can hear my laptop taking off. So yeah, this is the model essentially, the base for me building up the scene. As you can see, there's really nothing to it, but I just wanted to show you some of these tools quickly in here. And like, this is a program I've had for years, and I used it quite a bit a number of years ago, and yeah, I don't use it so much anymore, but came back to use this for this. So also it's voxels. If you don't know what that is, like let's say like in Blender, right, if you're building, you have a cube and you cut like a piece off of that cube is actually hollow, right? It's just faces. There's nothing inside of it. Whereas voxels, if you think of it a bit more like an actual lump of clay, when you cut through it, you're cutting through a solid object. So there is a surface, where you cut, and therefore you can do lots of things that you couldn't otherwise do very quickly if you were like poly modeling, for example. Voxels are just Minecraft. Yeah, basically. And that's why this is very, very cool and very, very quick, right? So let me show you how I made that tower very quickly. So here, let me just resample this. So at the moment, this is 28,000 poly count. So I'm just going to turn this up a little, up to this. Just scaled it up. But basically, let me show you how this works. And let's put it on isometric viewpoint and snap to this view. Okay. Let's see. Cut off. So if I use this tool, right, and I cut this slice out, you know, in Blender, for example, this would be empty. But here, what you're going to see is that actually it's a surface, right? It's solid object. So it's like this all the way through. And this is really helpful for making quick models. So as an example, something I did when making that tower was to, if I see this in the top view here, and I use this tool called pose, okay, I'm going to turn symmetry on, and I'm going to have it in the X and Z axes, so you can see here that cross. You'll be able to see the planes, those planes that it's mirroring in, just here. And yeah, I'm going to use this pose tool, and I'm going to use this tool with sort of a rectangular selection, and let's say I select the corner like this. So reset axis. Now what I can do, you can see the corners are selected, and that's because of the symmetry. Now if I use this box and enlarge them, you know, maybe pull them out like this, and I clear that selection. Now do you see, you know, I have done this to the model, right? It's very quick. And I basically just built these towers up by using the pose tool, right? And a mixture of different techniques. So in this case, that's the corners. And I can change the fall off of this as well, and so on and so forth. It was weird at one time, but they let that go. Originally, the creators of 3D Coat had a bit in their license that said you weren't allowed to create demons and monsters with it, and they're really Christian. Yeah, I remember that. I was actually talking to my wife about that this morning. I was like, oh yeah, this whole thing about 3D Coat. But anyway, so if I make this selection at the top here, you know, I can make it smaller. And this area is like the fade, but you can change what that fade is. Like if I wanted just a hard angle, I can change the fall off here to make it different. As you can see, like I can do something like this, right? I could clear the selection, take this top part, do something like this, you know, again, clear the selection, take this top part, something like that, for example. And it's very, very quick to do all of these changes. Sorry, let's clear that. You know, maybe I want like a little edge to come out here. I want to do something like this. Etc, etc. And this is all just with the pose tool. Now I can like turn on radial symmetry if I want to reflect that on all sides, for example. As you can see, this really quick, right? Really, really, really quick. Now, when it comes to like, you know, making that scene, because this has a certain design language to it, let's say, you know, if I like duplicate this, you know, squash this down. Maybe squash it in that way. For example, I can basically kind of like kit bash with the model itself, right? Let's duplicate that again and run this out. Duplicate that again, run it out this way. You know, I can start to build a little scene basically with all of these parts together, and like, you know, I could angle these, which is what I did for part of the bridge. Oop. For part of the bridge, etc. You know, really, really simple. And yeah, this is something you can do in 3D Coat really quite quickly. So you can imagine that it didn't take an awful lot of time to build up something like this, but what it offers me is essentially like a nice base to then work on top of. And it's obviously of my own creation, and I can set up the shot and everything how I want. So what I did is, obviously I took, let's close 3D Coat now. Yeah, so I took this and I took this model into Keyshot, and Keyshot is like a drag and drop renderer. If you've never seen it before, essentially you open up your 3D model in it, you have like a library of materials that you can literally just drag and drop onto the model itself. So in this case I just dropped like a very matte kind of grey material, and then I set up an HDRI. So it was like an interior HDRI of like a garage, and I used basically some black circles on that HDRI to block out any of the lights that I didn't like, and I got a few renders out of it. So in this case, like I said, I've got this render which just shows me a little bit more detail. Overall, I have this one which is a very sort of like ambient matte render, which is probably like the base that I will work from, and this one which has basically a bit more like top lighting and so on, and I'll probably mix this and this together as part of like the base for the illustration, and go for there. So here I got the clown pass, right? And I was like, someone asked before, what do you use this for? Well, when I am, say, like painting on this illustration, for example, I can use the clown pass to get clean selections of these parts of the illustration. So let's say I want to paint behind the bridge, right? And add some like, you know, atmospherics. Ooh. I want to like, you know, add some smoke behind the bridge and separate it out from the rest of it. Et voila, you know. So the clown pass is really helpful for that, because you can select everything, and later on when I'm painting, obviously if I keep my layers kind of nice and organized, I'll be able to do that, and it's very, very handy to have. It's basically like how I did the last illustrations, the environments, where I was painting these flats in the beginning and then using them as selections later. It's that essentially, but you're just getting it for free out of the 3D program when you render out. So very, very handy. And then the last really handy thing that you can get out of the renderer is a depth pass. And you can use this as an alpha channel. And basically you can use it to get like depth of field. And it will, you know, basically give you, if you go on lens blur, you can basically click on a point in the image and it will, you know, focus the lens at that depth, so you can get, pardon me, really accurate like depth perception. But it's also, what's really nice is something like this. Is, for example, you can set this on like different layer modes. So let's say I have this on like multiply on here, and you know, I can use it in this way to sort of focus back onto the building using the depth. Then if I, you know, invert this, I can do it the other way. So I put like the building in shadow and so on. So it's going to be really helpful later when I've sort of painted bits out, and then I want to kind of mess around with the entire image and the perception of like what to look at and where and the values. So there are just many different things that I can do with the depth pass that are going to be very helpful later on. Like if I want to mist things out, I want to send values back, I want to bring values forward, I want to bring detail out, I want to lose detail. You know, I could use this on a variety of layer modes, for example, and get a real, you know, sense of atmosphere and mist. I can obviously invert that and do it the other way, for example, but something like this takes a lot of detail out, and so on. So ultimately very handy. Lots of stuff you can do with that. Now, yeah, what's really nice about this kind of process is that obviously, yes, I could set up a perspective grid, I could draw this stuff out, and I could, you know, get to something similar. But this gives me a very solid base, and I can, you know, get to that very quickly. And now, you know, when it comes to sort of painting details and everything, it's still all going to be painted. You're not really going to see much of the 3D in it at the very end. And it's just giving me a really nice like base to work from. And then I can add my own lighting, my own atmospherics, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's just a different technique for doing these things. I'm going to obviously work on this one this week, but I do want to show you some other stuff that you can do with 3D Coat as well for getting environments, because obviously this is one way and just one tool that I was using, but there are lots of different things that you can do, and much more organic stuff as well. So we'll get to that though. That's a bit further down the line. So yeah, I guess that's a little bit about the setup there. So let's talk about the image that I intend to do. And show you some of the references. So there's this area in Path of Exile called the Abyss. This is some of the concept art of the Abyss. It's one of the loading screens from the game, and yeah, as you can see, it's kind of this like very dark kind of like hellscape. There's all these like demons everywhere, and there's all these like horrible big isopods that crawl all over everything, and it's basically like that scene in Constantine when he goes to hell and there's just demons everywhere. That's what the Abyss is like. And it's just very cool in the game, and I really liked this artwork. Like, I thought this was pretty cool, and I really wanted to do something very similar with like the tower at the background and like hordes of monsters and just this whole aesthetic, because I think it's quite cool, right? So this was the main inspiration, where I'm like, I'm basically doing my own version of this here. So we're going to have this tower with that like sigil on it. And yeah, that I wanted like a really strong wind coming in from the side. So all of this would be like being swept up and breaking and all that kind of stuff. And then maybe even have like hordes of these demons climbing up onto this bridge. And potentially some kind of character action happening around here. So I was thinking potentially there's like, you know, a character here that's having their sort of last stand, and there's like demons that will be coming up and onto the bridge, climbing up the sides, and like we sort of have them illuminated a little bit, and maybe a spell that they're cast. And there's, you know, demon here that just got blasted, and then there's going to be like demons on the bridge coming up here, and this and the other. And then maybe even here there's like a door, and you can see like a much larger backlit kind of demon in there ready to come down the bridge. So there's that kind of character element that maybe you want to include in here. But yeah, the main focus is like, oh. What does that sigil look like? Damn. That was close. Almost banned. That sigil on here, you know, this, that, and the other. That's basically going to be the kind of the illustration, and this is why I set it up this way. So we've got this nice like lead-in tower. It's going to have a lot of atmosphere. So anyway, this is kind of the main reference. I'm basically recreating this, but in my own version, my own way, and maybe I will deviate from this somewhat. I'm not exactly trying to copy this. It's just I think it's kind of cool. So there's that. This is like a little bit of in-game. This basically is just here for colors and kind of texture reference. I do kind of like this kind of stony feel about it, and the greens and so on. So this is just something from in-game. That was a reference for me. Again, this is a little bit of a reference in-game. Got all these weird demons and so on. It's just, again, it's for sort of atmosphere, textures, etc., etc. I do look kind of like this sort of silhouette. So anyway, that's another reference in game. Then this, I don't know if you've seen this film. This is from a film called The Empty Man. It's kind of like a sort of cosmic horror film. It's one of those horror films where you start watching it and you think, oh, okay, I know what kind of film this is. And then it's completely like a different film. So, but anyway, these two pictures are from The Empty Man. And you see how this kind of like bone structure, you know, piles of bones and this sort of bone structure. I imagine like these things on the bridge, you know, this like bits of basically random placeholder geometry right now are going to be sort of like that, you know, like bones, hands holding them, and so on and so forth. So there's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff here. So I've got these here as a reference for that, because it's very cool. I like the aesthetic. Piles of bones, this kind of, you know, knotted up sort of fingers and so on. It's very architectural in and of itself. So that's kind of what's going to go on the bridge and on the building and stuff. Some big ribs, like all sorts of stuff. Then I have these two images from, I think, Piotr Jablinski. Let me grab his art station. I'll link it here. But yeah, these are nice. I really like the mood, the eyes in the background, like the subtle hue shifts, and why I may not be using this kind of palette, this kind of depth in the back, and like just it's just ultimately really nice mood. Similarly here, like I like the lost edges, the sort of, you know, void, lovely hue shifts. Like, open this up. Look, all these beautiful hues in all of this. Really, 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 really nice. So that's, again, a reference there to remind me that we can do this kind of thing. Yeah, it's so soft. The atmosphere feels very heavy, you know? It's like, it's very oppressive, in a sort of dreamy, kind of calm way. Now, what I anticipate in here as well is that, you know, if there's going to be lots of demons in it and stuff, it's going to be a bit more sort of chaotic. Oni1med, thank you. Onimed, thank you for the follow. Yeah, I do want this sort of like a wind, if you like, that's coming through the image in this direction. So like the top of the tower and stuff would all be like kind of breaking off in the wind, and there'd be like dust coming off of here, and maybe even some of this is like breaking off and coming off to the side. So it's going to have a lot of like, you know, movement and like it looks like it's all being blasted by a really insane wind. So again, very moody in its own right. Like I said, the character thing with the demons, we'll see. I might, you know, like this, where it's just like, it's quite empty, and there is a sort of a mood that is presented by the fact that it's an empty space. It feels very like heavy and solemn and old. I do kind of like this. Similarly, like with this, it's a bit more still. So I'm not completely sold on like doing this kind of character thing in the middle. We'll just see where the illustration goes. If it ends up being like quite moody and I'd like the mood of it, then it you know, I might forego the action and just keep it as kind of a bit more of a moody thing. All right. So, explanation over. My sort of first port of call here will be to put something for scale in the BG or FG, but keep the focus on the environment. Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like stuff that could be good for the scale is stuff that I wanted to add in here. You know, like if these statues are made of like piles of bones and we have like a few skulls in there and stuff like that, then we'll be able to tell the scale of that and so on. But yeah, we'll see. Honestly, I'm not ruling out a bit of a character story in there. I'm also not ruling out it being that. So, that being said, give me just a couple of minutes. I want to make a coffee before we dive into this, and quickly use the bathroom. I'll leave you on this screen actually. But yeah, that's me. That's Alex Heath. Thank you. Welcome to my TED Talk. I will be right back. Be right back, 2 minutes. Stop right there. Stop right there, criminal scum. Okay. Let's put a bit, something a bit spookier on the music. And then, yeah, let's get in. So, I'm going to set up the layers a little bit here. Basically using the clown pass right now to like cut the background out from the other images. Because we're going to replace this with our own painting in the background. Do we just do something like placeholdery right now? Essentially, probably some sort of gradient based on the concept art. And I'm going to be working, as always, you guessed it, general to specific. So right now, I'm just looking to set up like the general impression of the light, of the mood of the piece, and basically sort out the big 20%ers, you know. There's no point me going in and painting like details or anything like that. I'm really just trying to set up really just trying to set up the overall like mood, essentially. The big impression. Like, we're gonna keep essentially this whole thing on the screen. I'm not gonna be like in here doing anything at this point. I gotta set up like essentially the thumbnail impression. Once that's in, you know, then we can focus in a little bit more. But generally we need to like get the impression working first. So I've got these few renders, right? I've got this one. This one is really there essentially just for if I need to pull any detail back out. Like it gets like too hazy, too foggy, and I'm like losing some definition. Then I've got that render here. It's particularly horrible, right? But it does just have like contrasts in it, which I can use to sort of pull detail back out. So that's why this is here. And then this one obviously is quite nice and sort of ambient and soft, and it has a certain like just basically like ambient softness to it. But the focus is a little bit more like on the front of the building here. And then this one is like the building's in shadow and there's a little bit more of a top light that sort of picks out some interesting details. Now, in this kind of place, like in this one, there's like, it's very dark, right? But there is like ambient light from the sky. There's like some sort of, you know, almost like object light in the middle, area light that's sort of illuminating stuff. So there are different surfaces that get lit and picked up and stuff like that, and it adds to the overall atmosphere of the piece. So I have something similar going on where I've got essentially lots of different lights, and you know, I could sort of merge the impression of two of these things together, and now I've got like a lot of information that I can play with. It's still quite ambient, you know, as you can see, but it's just picking out a little bit more detail, and then I can be free to sort of knock that back even more if I need to, overall. So I'll be messing around with these quite a bit overall, you know, when I turn the opacity down, like something like this, it's really quite nice as a setup. And then obviously this provides me with a little bit more info, etc., etc. So, you know, I'll be working to try and build up this impression a little bit. Extremely hyped to see how this piece turns out. Love the ref. Thanks. Yeah, this is going to be a bit more of a piece where it's like going to work on it a little bit more and sort of push it a bit more as a bit more of a finished piece, as it were. So I'm also looking forward to see how that goes. Yeah. Hopefully it's going to be like the most accomplished environment piece that I've done for a long time. So and I think, you know, we've done sort of the hand-drawn paintings, you know, leading up to this. So we're gonna learn a lot. We've learned a lot from those, hopefully. So yeah. What is this project for? Just fun. Yeah, just for learning and fun. Yeah. Ain't no thing. I just have time right now, and I made a new brush, this one. Yeah. So I have some time at the moment, and I want to focus on learning some stuff that I otherwise don't get to focus on. And this is one of those things, environments. And yeah, I'm just experimenting. Getting back into some old techniques that I used to use a lot. You know, 3D coat and so on. It's one day maybe. Yeah, dude. Trust. I feel you, honestly. It's definitely difficult working to find the time to have the motivation to do these kind of things. And the work-life balance definitely been off for a while. So yeah, it's good to get back in, I gotta say. Oh, you're using 3D coat? Yeah. I guess you missed it before, but yeah, I sort of briefly showed how I made this in 3D coat, and yeah, what I'm using it for in this essentially. Yeah, exactly. Not complaining, which is weird as a French guy. But if I could have more time to produce stuff for myself, I'd be even more happy. Yeah, for sure. I've seen some interesting features in this software, but another software. Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. Software fatigue is pretty real. 3D Coat is like probably the first 3D software that I spent a lot of time in when it first came out. So I'm kind of quite familiar with it. I had to do a bit of relearning yesterday. Watched a few old tutorials that I still have on my other PC, and so on. But got back there. There's a ton you can do in the program. I just think it's very good for specifically doing what I call like sketch models, essentially like these kind of models where you don't need a lot of detail and so on, and it's really just about getting a good impression straight away. Yeah, in this abyss area of the game, like when you're playing the game, these caverns open up, right? And the abyss monsters like crawl out of them, and it's all got this kind of heavy green overcastness to it, you know, like this as well. I really like this kind of grey, yeah, and so on. So that's my first port of call, really, is to just try and grab that mood for the piece overall. And once we've set up the mood, like, then I can sort of flatten some bits down. And then I can really get into sort of painting and stuff, but I gotta settle that up first because it's gonna drive the piece. It's very much mood first on this one, you know. Now that I'm okay-ish with Blender, with almost everything in it, I don't think I'll move, but I'd love Blender to handle poly counts as ZBrush and 3D Coat do, like for pattern projection and sculpt. Yeah, you never know. I mean, maybe that stuff will come in there, and I completely understand, like, not wanting to jump ship and learn another software, because, yeah, that fatigue can get real. Really real, really quickly. Now I'm just laying these layers down broadly with like a big soft brush. I don't intend for them to have this very like airbrushy finish later, but again, this is just me establishing like the big impression overall, so that I can see like, okay, this is where I'm heading, and then obviously later I can play with the execution of that much better and more painterly and so on. But big big impression first, general to specific, as I always say. Try and really nail that in the beginning. So I'm going to duplicate this render and put it on top of everything. Turn up this, and then I'm going to basically delete everything but the bridge. Yeah, and I basically just want that. On that top surface here. Thanks for sharing different workflow ideas. You gave a talk at my uni T-side and it was super helpful. Hey, yeah, no problem. I think it's good to have a lot of versatility and techniques in your arsenal. You know, you never really know what a particular illustration or job is going to throw at you, and yeah, having ways of like, well, dealing with different situations, and having different tools in your arsenal is definitely helpful to problem solve and save you time. You know, I definitely use lots of different techniques to get me out of a pinch. You know, I'm not a purist when it comes to illustration and the techniques. You know, I like, you know, I'd like to sort of make this so that it still has a very sort of like painterly feel about it overall. That intention is still a strong one for me. I do need to get rid of this this edge there. I do not like that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought just then. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, I'm still going to have a very painterly outcome, hopefully, so that bit doesn't die. But yeah, I'm not much of a purist, if you like, when it comes to the techniques used to get to a certain place. I think it's actually very helpful to have lots of different ways to solve problems in your arsenal. It's only going to benefit you. In the long run. Time is money, man. Sometimes you don't get paid a day rate. You're just getting paid for like the illustration. So you have to find ways of making that worthwhile and still producing a piece of work that you want to put out there, because there is a balance. And like a lot of the time, the client doesn't really care how you got there. They just want the thing they want, you know? I'm a purist, I'm too dumb to be clever. That's funny. Fast, good, cheap, pick two. Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they say. But yeah, I mean, it's cool as well with lots of different techniques, right? Because I could sit here with a perspective grid, you know, and draw this out or not even draw this out. I would paint shapes in like I did, you know, on the previous illustrations that we've done here. And it takes a certain amount of time, and you know, you get there. But when I do it this way, for example, and I save myself some time in the beginning where essentially I lock my composition in a lot earlier, it gives me a lot more time in the later stages of the illustration where I'm trying to, you know, make things look good, and like I get a bit more time in the rendering phase, because I kind of have a countdown that starts above my head when I start a new piece of like me getting sick of it. And if I just start from the beginning and like draw everything out every single time, I only get so far before I get sick of it. And having techniques like this where I can use a bit of 3D and like solve a certain problem quicker does mean that I get a bit more time at the sort of later stages of the process, or it takes a certain amount of thinking out of it that means I can focus on something else. And that to me is quite exciting, because then I can do things that I wouldn't otherwise do, and you know, get to do a cool part of an illustration that I otherwise wouldn't be able to do, and so on. So I just think it's a nice thing to do, and it's been so long since I've done something like this that it feels exciting again. And to be honest, like, artwork has not felt that exciting for a little while, so I'm here for it. Essentially, is what I'm saying. In practice, very few people will give you all the time you need to make the best piece. It's something you have to get used to as a working artist. I agree, same with me. I can do portraits faster in 3D than 2D, and with the advantage of being able to rotate it in all directions. Yeah, for real. Yeah. I'm not saying like everyone hates using 3D or anything like that. I'm also not like calling anyone out if they like adamantly just don't ever want to use it or anything like that. I'm not saying you have to or anything. I'm just saying from where I'm at, and where I'm at with, you know, how I've been feeling about making artwork for a little time now. It's all good in the hood for me. It's been a long time since artwork was fun for me, let's put it that way. And even feeling motivated to do it, so. I'm just happy to be there right now. I didn't think I'd find the love again. I'm glad this is bringing the fun back. Thanks. Yeah, I don't mean that to sound doom and gloom at all. And I'm also not being like ungrateful. I know I'm very like lucky to be in this position where I can make artwork for a living and so on. But there is a certain amount of fatigue that creeps in after a while, especially working on long projects and so on, that can get can get a very tiring after a while. Sorry, I'm focusing on details here. Can get very sort of tiring after a while, and you love doing artwork and you do it every day, but none of it is for yourself, and after a while you're just like, oh man, I really want to fucking do some shit for myself right now. You have ideas, you know, you have stuff that you want to do, and you're not able to have the time to do it, and like you finish work and you just like, I don't want to sit on the computer for another 4 hours. You lose a hobby basically when you start working as an artist, you know. You gain obviously the ability to use your skills to make money, but you do lose a hobby. I think that's kind of an important distinction to realize. It's very difficult to keep up the passion for both. So this little technique I'm using here, just in case you're wondering what I'm doing, I've got this render on top of the image at the moment. You know, this is very atmospheric, right? Very moody. But like here, for example, I've lost some detail, right? And it's flat, and I want to bring back a little bit of detail. And this is where, and like here, for example, I want to bring back a little bit of detail that just somewhat tells me what's in the shadow, but not too much. So I use this render. I've copied it here. This one has lots of edges, lots of detail on it, but obviously it's too much. It now gets rid of the mood. And one way of selectively bringing back the detail is if I double click on the layer and I open up the layer styles panel. You can see here at the bottom there's this blending option, and it says blend if, and you can choose the color, right? But blend if, and you can blend this layer, so I can blend the darks, for example, and keep the lights. Yeah. I can blend the lights and keep the darks. Or what I can get it to do is from the underside layer, I can get it to show me the darks through, right? And I can get it to show me just the lights from the underside layer, which isn't much. So here it's blending the darks. And you see here, this is quite nice. It's giving me a little bit of detail in these shadow areas on here. Yeah, I'm keeping this and I'm enveloping the shadow back. But you see right now, I can't zoom in while this is active, but right now this is very sort of crunchy, very noisy, right? It looks kind of a bit weird and like horribly digital, okay? So what you do is, if you hold Alt, you can split this arrow. You can see I'm splitting it. And what that does is kind of like soften the edge. So I can find like the amount of detail that I want, say something like this. Okay, and then I can use this to essentially, sorry, here, and then I'm holding Alt and I split this, and I use that to sort of soften that curve off so that it sits there a bit more naturally. So now you can see here I've got a bit of detail back. I'll turn this on and off. So flat, no detail. Brought a bit of that detail back in the shadow, and it's just giving me a bit more geometry again. whereas previously I'd like flattened it out. And that's with that layer styles panel. Really, really awesome way of like bringing back detail. You can like duplicate your painted layer, for example, and put it back on top of the image, and then do this to sort of pull it back through. It can also be quite good at the end of the image to like copy and paste your image and like shift the values. So like maybe blow out the lights on your image, put it back on top, and then use the layer styles to sort of pull your lights out a bit brighter or push your shadows a bit darker. Very, very, very easy technique for that. Very effective. And like I said here, it's just brought me back a little bit of detail in the shadows so that later I can sort of use some of these edges and like paint my own, you know, what I'll do later is paint my own like arches and stuff, you know, in here, and just bring out a little bit of detail that the 3D model doesn't have. But it's just giving me the values to do that with. And just, again, brings back a little bit of geometry in the shadows so it's not completely flat. And so on. So there you go, sorry. Let me catch up with the chat again. I had a really bad couple of years where everything went wrong. Social welfare fucked me over, so I lost my company, got in serious debts, which eventually caused my heart to fail. I think my previous dog died. I stopped doing art regularly. I'm still ill, so don't see myself working full-time any day soon. Man, that sounds like a real arduous journey that you've been on there. Sorry to hear that. So instead I focused on building a consciousness quantum field theory of everything. Why, I don't know. But it's hundreds of pages now. Very nice. So it's above my pay grade. All roads lead back to drawing demons for fun. Yes, exactly, Oracle. If in doubt, demons for fun. There's a big difference between making art for you and making art for a job. Completely understand. I got burned out from that and had to stop accepting freelance work for a while to reset. Yeah. Totally get you, man. Totally get you. Sorry. Yeah, honestly, there's a lot you can do in this layer styles panel. It's not just like quirky gimmick stuff. It's really good for doing that. Like, let's say this image was finished, right? And I've copy and pasted like the whole thing on top of it. So I've got my finished image, and I use a curves layer here. And let's say I'm like, I want the lighting to be a bit more like prominent in the image. Okay, and I do this with the curves, right? I sort of really blow it out like that. Obviously I don't want this to be the impression. It's quite like in your face. But if I use the layer styles panel, I can blend this layer if dark, right? So all of the darks, you know, I can blend back and bring in the lights. And here now I've got like these punchier lights in here, and then I can obviously still like mess with that and bring it down. But it's kind of like targeting a certain part of the value range, and you can you know, enhance it. And let's say, for example, I have this, but the underlying layer, I want to, hang on. I want to bring back, I want a bit more punch, but I need to soften it out a little bit. I could do something like this, you know? It's really helpful for that, especially at the end. You can just basically repurpose your entire illustration as a lighting ref. Very nice like technique to enhance something about the image that wasn't quite working. And like these depth passes you can use in a similar way to help you as well. Yeah, I tend to like doing the initial work. Finishing is the hard part and frankly the boring part, because I already know what it will look like once I finish and I lose interest. Yeah, definitely. Yep. I hear ya. Okay. Yeah, the impression of this is going in the right direction. I obviously have to be like quite careful of like keeping the layers managed. It's it is something that can go awry. And I do want a little bit more like top light, which I will use to sort of pick up the stairs in here. But I think I will basically just paint that in. And I want to try and get like I have this sort of what gives the impression of being purple up here, but which is quite nice. Yeah, it's just like a slightly warmer grey, right? But it gives the impression of being purple because it's next to the green. Simultaneous contrast right there. Simultaneous contrast is the reason why mixing color is super difficult, because your eyes lie to you. Okay, just very quickly going to pop to the bathroom. I'll leave you guys with this for a sec. Let's look at it the other way around for a second. Yeah, I'll be right back. Yo. I'm back. It's Heal time, not sponsored. Lieutenant Danny. What's up? How you doing? Cold. It's minus 11 here right now. That is disgusting. Where is here? Where is here for you? Generally, don't dox yourself, obviously, but. East Coast in the US, no way. Well. why on earth are you tuning into this? I'm not complaining, obviously. It's nice, but it's far away, bruv. So let's have a quick look at our refs again. I do love this image. It's I know there's like bits of it that are a little bit hard to read, but I do kind of like this like hell monkey with lots of limbs and all these horns on his back and stuff. It's pretty cool. Also, they've swapped out concept birds for concept bats, which you better believe. You better believe that we're putting concept bats in this. So yeah. I love your style. I prefer concept art vibe. Well, thanks, mate. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Okay, so I have a nice impression here, kind of generally the mood and the values. So obviously I've got all these kind of like disparate layers, right, with like bits of stuff going on. And this is where I will do kind of like a bit of a slight cleanup pass, right? Where what I'll do is like flatten the illustration down and then use the clown pass to like cut these layers back out. So then I have all of these as kind of flat shapes with the kind of painting on the inside of them. And what this will let me do is like paint inside of these shapes again without the worry of like disturbing any of the other layers. And it's kind of like resets the painting. Because like right now you see I make all these layers, right? And it's like, that's fine. But then everything is separated out. So I will basically take a flat version of this. There we go. And use this clown pass to cut this back into layers again. This will make things a lot easier to organize going forward. Because I tell you why. These layers are going to change, right? I'm going to be painting details into these. And so the silhouette is going to change for a lot of these shapes, like especially on the bridge there's going to be like bone shapes and all of that. So if I can work from a flat base again, I can just build shapes onto that, and then I can use that new shape as the new mask. You might be like, what the fuck is he talking about? But it will make sense. How do you use the clown thingy? I'll show you. So this clown pass is a render from a 3D program. The 3D program that I made this geometry in. And I have it on a separate layer, and it's locked, right? I can't change it. But what I can do is select from it. And you see here, it gives me clean selections of shapes. Yeah, color ID. Yeah, exactly. So there we go. So it just means you see this, like all of these soft edges, blah, blah, blah. Like it'd be impossible to go in and cut this out nicely. But now I can do that. So what I'm doing here is essentially cut it out, layer via cut, then go back to here, select the next bit from the clown pass. Here we go, layer via cut, and so on. And I'll do this front to back on the image. And I basically then reset the layers for the image itself, you know? This'll do. Layer via cut. This will become clear why I'm doing this in a second. If you like, still... What the hell is he doing? Oh, this is from a 3D perspective. You do the thing earlier this week. Yes, I made this scene yesterday in 3D Coat. Very, very basic model. Which, yeah, if you catch the VOD for the stream, I do it at the beginning of the stream. I go over how I did this. Sorry, just give me a sec. And yeah, it is just like an ID pass. I just always knew it as a clown pass, the name of it. So that's why I call it a clown pass, because it's, you know, so all the colors. But yeah, it is just 3D ID or whatever you want to call it. Okay. Instant Zorn vibes here. Yeah, we're actually doing this, Jeff. I'm doing my version of this image. How do you avoid the lost stray pixels when you select and cut a shape to a new layer? You can feather the selection and make it larger, or you can select the inverse and then go inside and do it that way. But for these, they don't need to be like super clean, because the background, all of the stuff below it, the renders and everything, they're all going to remain here. So like if I had a white background, you'd see like, oh, there's this horrible thing going on, right? But the background is going to remain below it, so it's not going to be an issue. And I'm just being lazy. Is that Warhammer? No, it is not Warhammer. It is Path of Exile 2. Okay, so why did I do this, right? Basically, what I've now done, you know, I have all these renders down here. I have all of the layers in between. Okay. All these like smoke layers and this kind of stuff, which is all fine. Problem is, it's all separated. So if I want to paint on this, I'm either painting on top of those layers, or I have to turn those layers off and paint underneath, and then blah blah blah, and it gets very, very messy very quickly. So I flatten the image, and then I cut the main shapes back out, and I basically turn the illustration back into an illustration that has less layers, but all of these bits are free to move around. Okay. And this makes it very, very easy to work with and from now, because what I would want to do now is like paint on top of a lot of this and change the geometry, and this isn't going to enable me to do that. So by changing the geometry, right, what I want to do is change these shapes like this. So if I want to add something to this, just use a solid brush on this layer, and I like add some new shape to this thing. okay, because it's going to be like bones and whatever that's going to be. But I've changed the silhouette of it, okay? But I still want to paint behind it cleanly and so on. Well, now because this is just one layer, this is now the new mask. I can select this and I can paint behind it again. And so on and so forth. So I've kind of reset the painting back to simple layers to now enable me to just paint into these layers as I see fit and change them and add to them and erase from them. And then I can still use them as a mask. So for example, let's say I change this, but I want to like erase a shape into it. Yeah, I can do this. I've made that new shape. This means that obviously this is now the new silhouette selected. And on that thing that's behind it, on the building, yeah, that's got this gap, on this thing, like I can now just paint behind on that and refill this gap. And it just keeps everything kind of a bit simpler and a bit quicker, but it means I'm not going up and down the layers the whole time being like, where is that thing? Where is this thing? I want to paint on this layer, but I need to turn this adjustment layer off, and I need to turn this layer off, and so on. It turns it into a much simpler illustration again. So now I can sort of focus individually on different areas of the piece, and just be free to paint into them and design them, etc. And what I will then do is, once I've, on this bridge again, for example, I do this, blah blah blah, okay, and then I select my bridge. I can update the clown paths with the new shapes, and then I can just use those clean selections again. So it's just a very, very freeing way to reset the painting and work again from something simpler with less layers. And yeah, like I said, I'm not too like bothered about this kind of jank right now, because I'm gonna paint into this stuff. These silhouettes are gonna change. These edges are gonna all be different. Some of these are gonna get a lot more painterly. Like, let's say this building right now. I'm gonna later on be taking a brush, maybe something like, where is it? Something like this, and be painting new edges and textures into things and so on. So it will lose a lot of this stuff. You won't see it, so on and so forth. I'll change the shapes, because the 3D that I built is, it's there as a canvas to paint on top of, and it's there to provide the geometry, but it isn't any of the detail. And that's why the model itself, the model that I made, is like really horrendous to look at. It's not a detailed model. It's just, super jank 3D. Look at all this geometry on the bridge and stuff. It's like, it isn't anything. It's just placeholder, and there's just enough surfaces, just enough surfaces to pick up the lighting from the renderer. But what I'll be doing is like, all of this is going to be skulls and bones and stuff on the edge, like holding up this. It's going to be kind of like, very Geiger-esque in its appearance. this kind of a thing. So I can say on top of the bridge here, just using my brush, like I can pick up some of these shapes that the light's on and start to build out like rib shapes and all of that kind of stuff, and just use this as like, this is the palette and this is the forms and the way they're facing, but then build up my own kind of painting in there. Similarly here, like these are going to become stairs, right? So that's going to end up like this, you know, and I'll kind of break some of those and this, that, and the other. And then all around the edges is going to be like bones, skulls, maybe even like some rib cage type things going on around here. And I'm just using these values that the painting has set up now as you know, a way of understanding, oh, this is facing this way, this is this value, etc. And I can just extrapolate this out, so on and so forth. And this is how it's going to look very painterly in the end, because it's basically going to get painted over in this way and sort of worked into and so on. And then there's going to be like smoke and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, resetting it is the name of the game. And this is where it gets a bit more fun as well, because we're now like working in some shapes and yeah, all that good stuff. So yeah, sorry, maybe I'll over-explain that and it's not as confusing to you guys. And you're just like, yeah, Alex, we get it. But that's cool. I think it's hard for me to be comfortable with the looseness of the art sometimes because I'm such a perfectionist. Yeah. That's why you got to zoom out. That's why you got to zoom out more. You will pick the wrong layer once in a while. Yes. All the time, actually. Yo, Alex. Yeah, sorry. Did I say hi, Uber? Hello, Uber. Welcome. No, let me zoom. You must not. You must not zoom. Yeah, my brother's colorblind. So I'm going to do this staircase right here. Just going to quickly put a couple of lines down to keep me in check. Commissar Skull. Thank you for the follow. A very serious name. It's very serious. Maximum serious. I like it. Nice. No, I like the emoji too. Zooming out. It's not something the Jedi would teach you. Yeah, super serious. Mad serious, bruh. Sorry, pardon me. Oh, see, as soon as we talk about wrong layers and I do this on the same layer that this is on, fucking hell. Guys. Guys. So these stairs are going to be like a little bit kind of wonky, right? And also there's going to be sort of like a build up of like ash and dust and stuff on top of them that sort of spills out over the edge. And I also want this kind of like sideways wind, right, that's really strong across the image, that's going to be sort of like tearing some of the brickwork apart even. So there's going to be a bit of that going on. But yeah, these steps, most of them are above our view, right? The top surface of the steps we're not going to see so much of because of where the camera is. The camera is like below the walkway here, so any of these top surfaces are where the steps themselves have like gathered a bit of ash or dust or something, and we're seeing that rather than like the top of the stairs, if that makes sense. And then I will mask out this as well at the edges. I was just watching one of your YouTube videos and now I'm here. Oh, nice. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, sorry, I am like streaming currently on both Twitch and YouTube, but I don't have both the Twitch and YouTube chats open, and therefore, if anyone's like talking on YouTube or interacting, I'm obviously not seeing that. I'm really only streaming on YouTube so that I can save the VODs there on my channel, right? And I am streaming on Twitch because I was streaming a few years ago, several years ago, in fact, and I already have, a couple of thousand followers on Twitch, so I didn't want to start again on YouTube from scratch. So I'm streaming on both, and then I'm obviously saving the VODs there. But yeah, so apologies to anyone that is actually talking on the YouTube and being like, this guy is fucking ignoring me. I apologize. It's okay, I'm just here to observe. Yeah, fair enough. But I was just letting you know. Just letting you know what's going on. What's going on in the kitchen. Yeah. Yeah, I'm watching on YouTube because Twitch doesn't work so well for me. Yeah, I think it's actually in like higher resolution on YouTube as well. So there's also a bonus there. Do you get do you even get ads with me here on Twitch? Like I, as far as I'm aware, I'm not like running ads, but maybe Twitch runs ads on them. And yeah, on YouTube I have premium, so I don't have the ads. It is higher resolution on YouTube, and it is faster. Okay, cool. Commissar Skull just subscribed. Yo, thank you. Much appreciated the sub. Thanks for joining. You are now part of a very, very, very... Is that so loud? I'll figure out the volume of that. To me, it's not very loud. Like, but okay, sorry. That's funny. Sorry, Devin. I'll blow your ear hole out. But yeah, sorry, as I was saying, you're part of a very, very small and exclusive club now that has really zero benefits. Well, not having ads is a benefit. Yeah, true. Yes, I just mean it's not a benefit that I was providing, you know. So I'm just adding like additional stuff to the silhouette that I will like paint inside of, and then eventually again like flatten these things down to simplify the image, and then use those as part of the masks for cutting things out later on again. So it's all in a process of trying to keep organized. As Devin in the chat here can attest to, I have pretty awful layer management when it comes to large files, and I'm trying to work on being a bit more organized, both for myself and also for my co-workers. So I am focusing a bit more on like trying to do that in the illustrations a bit more as well, in these ones on Twitch, to sort of get my mind in the focus zone for it, because I'm pretty bad for it. Like I said, Devin knows. Devon knows what it's like. He's had many a file handed over and been like, what in the actual fuck has Alex been doing in this folder? And not just me, but for the purposes of what we're talking about, it's me. He's like, what is he doing? I'm not the worst offender of this in the world, but I am pretty bad at it. And yeah, it's fine. I can't blame it on anything other than just like purely not taking 5 minutes to sort stuff out as I'm doing it. I'm a horror bag for it though. Gonna lurk for a bit, got a meeting. Cool. Lurk away. Lurk away, homie. First thing I do is reorganize it so I can actually use it. Yeah. I just don't know how you can work like that. It would send me into a rage trying to find the right layer. Honestly, dude, I send myself into a rage. It's purely like getting caught up in the moment of like quickly painting over something, trying to find the impression, you know, and then in the end I've created so many layers that I'm like, oh, I'll just continue working on this because I'm going to be the only one on this particular folder, you know, and then, you know, somewhere down the line I'm like, oh shit, I gotta hand this over to work on something else, and I've fucked it up. I've made it a hellscape. So I'm trying to get better at it. This is me getting better at it. All right. Proud of you. Thanks, mate. I lied, they postponed it as soon as I joined. Love that. Love that. To actually think about what this thing is before I just start noodling on it. I kind of want it to be a little bit like a kind of like a spine on top a little bit. Where's my brush? Like the top part of this kind of has like vertebrae kind of feeling to it. And then it's like there's lots of sort of dust and ash on it on top, which kind of softens all the shapes out. And then something kind of very Geiger-esque on the side. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be something specific, but it's just like it needs to give an impression of something that we recognize as like bony shapes to some degree, and then ultimately it doesn't need to be super detailed. Again, it's just like the impression overall. And I actually hate what I've just done there, so let's get rid of that. And like the impression of like bigger, larger bones as well, like huge bones that might have been from like much larger, bigger demons. I made this brush ages ago to paint grass, and I think it works quite well for this sort of impression, this kind of thing, the jitter. Which is not the intended purpose of this brush, but it's I think it works quite nicely. Like, it's got some detail, which is nice, but it's like still very impressionistic, so it works quite nicely. You mean like layers in Photoshop? Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just like anything. In the beginning, you're like, what the hell am I doing? But Felix Light of VT is now following. Thank you for the follow. Naming layers in this economy. Can't afford to name layers, my boy. Wait. What's going on here? I name all my layers. Yeah, you do, dude. Otherwise, I spend 20 minutes turning layers on and off and be like, which one are you? Control click, mate. It's your best friend. I have hotkeys for naming basic layers. I use a lot, like lighting. Yeah, I sometimes color code stuff. Yo, Eternal, what's up, my guy? You've been lurking since the start. You like the mood I'm going for? Thanks. Thanks. Me too. I'm into it too. Tell me you have the rest of the day to work on this. Yeah, I mean, I've got 45 minutes until I usually end the stream, because I like to do 4-hour blocks, you know. And I am enjoying this, absolutely. But yeah, I do... Basically, I get like super wiped out, like painting and talking. It's a lot of like mental energy to like talk and paint and stuff like that. And so like as much as I would be like, oh, I could paint on this for another few hours, I will literally shut down and you know, it'll just get very difficult to continue, and then I'll be kind of too wiped out and I won't want to come on and paint tomorrow and so on and so forth. So it's just it's kind of better to like stop when you're quite into it, and then you can come back to it with some like gusto and you just like really into it again. You know what I mean? But yeah, let's see. I might go a bit longer today on it just because, yeah, I'm enjoying it. But I also don't want to like burn myself out on it on day one. And then, you know, tomorrow and the rest of the days, I'm just like, ugh. Top. Yeah, I mean it's gonna keep evolving. Keep evolving, going on and on and on. yeah, I know that makes me sound like an old man being like, I get too tired doing it, but yeah, I do. It does take it out of me. And you've probably seen on stream sometimes get to a point where just get very confused. And I'm like, oh god, what bit am I working on? Yeah. I'm pretty bad at looking after myself too, so I got to do it, because I will just keep going on something, and past a certain point I'll just be making terrible decisions as well, and just keep going and going and going, and then yeah, I'll be like, well, I'm knackered and I've destroyed the picture. Yeah, I don't mind walking away from something and it sort of sits in the back of my head and I continue to think about it. That's generally how I end up solving problems that I'm having in an illustration, is actually not being there painting it, but actually being away from it and just letting it sort of bubble around in my head for a little bit. Well, I'll quite often be in the shower or out for a walk or on my bike or at paintball training or doing something else, basically. When I'm like, oh yeah, that'll be the solution for this part of the image. Where is this coming from? Get out of here. Get out of here. There we go. Yeah. Like if I'm ever struggling with an illustration and there's something in it that's not working for me and so on, like I rarely solve it by sitting in front of it for 2 hours, noodling it. But if I go away for an hour, 2 hours a day, I quite often come up with the solution that way. It's got to let your brain sort of mull it over. And I think sometimes looking at the illustration, you just get caught up on other things. You're like, oh, this bit sucks and this bit doesn't work either and blah, blah, blah. And then when I walk away from it, I'm sort of just working off of my memory of what it looks like. And so I often don't get caught up in the illustration so much. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm really enjoying this. It's quite nice, kind of building this up. I'm trying to keep it in the execution, so I'm trying not to zoom in so much. I'm just trying to sort of build up a bit of an impression of, these bones that are sticking out on the side of the walkway. And I want to create this impression of like, imagine like this kind of thing. Where is it? Imagine this kind of thing is like making up the entire side of the walkway. It's just piles of, skulls and bones and stuff of all different sizes that's going like all the way up here, and just picking up the light. So it's like just all mounded on top of each other, and that there's eons of dust and stuff on it. So it's just, you're seeing a little bit of it here and there, but it's not really super detailed, and so on. And like this dust on the side of the stairs is kind of built up and covering the stairs quite a bit, etc. And obviously there's going to be this like green light from below, but It's going to be like quite weak at the front here because I don't want like high contrast. It's kind of quite nice on the side here, but at the front here, it's going to be a bit more like this kind of value, if at all, and just like ever so slightly picking up things, you know. And then further back here, what we'll do later on, something like this. You know, much more sort of stylized smoke reaching up, coming around, and then it will be the same on the far side. So basically, like here. Yeah. Like that. And then this will have a bit more like of a draw to it. There's going to be the sigil on there, whatever it is. Try not to draw a cock. So on. You know what I mean? It's going to be a bit more like that later on. Oh yeah. And what I also wanted to do, I'll do this on top of everything. It's like, imagine there's like a really strong like wind that's like whipping through. You know, it's like whipping through, and so some of this dust and like bones and stuff, they're all being like kind of blown off the side in some manner. And so there's just this like, and even like parts of this brickwork and stuff, you know, like blowing outwards and off to the side. So we just get this sense of like, you know, real crazy kind of weather coming through here, and the dust and all the ash and dust has been like blown off of all of this. Yeah, a lot of movement, you know, stuff like this, because I think it adds to it, you know. So this smoke and stuff would just be like getting a bit whipped up as it gets over the edge of the stairs, you know, this kind of a thing. Because yeah, I just like that kind of aesthetic to this, that it could be happening in here. Gives it a lot of movement, like yeah, sets the mood a bit more. And yeah, some other things I want to get like a little bit more false coloring in there, like these illustrations here. They have a nice hue shifts, you know, so that's something that I need to get a little bit more of in as I sort of start these things as well, is to get a little bit more exciting colors in there. You know, I could, for example, shift this a little bit more to here. and so on and so forth. But yeah, anyway, that's all later. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself there. Windy notes. Yeah, let's just get rid of the smoke. I don't actually need it right now. It's not time. All these things are like fun things to do. So it's not time. At the moment. Still work on the large impression. But yeah, I intend to spend at least the rest of this week on this one. Like I said, I did want to spend a bit longer on one and do a bit more than I have done on like some of the previous ones. It's all kind of been leading up to doing something like this, you know. So and then for the next one, I don't know exactly what it will be yet, but their 3D coat is really good for like organic shapes and organic sculpting, and there's some really good tools that you can use to make some really very interesting architecture that would take quite a long time to draw. And I would like to maybe do an image where we use some of those techniques and like build it up So I will probably do like another landscape after this one and do that as well. So. I've zoomed in. I'm sorry. 1 second. I just noticed something I had to figure out, because this is an inclined plane right here. I had to fix it. I'm sorry. Zoomed in heresy. Yeah, we need an emote for it. We need concept bats as well. Lots of concept bats. Yeah, the other thing that I was maybe gonna do is have like some like abyss kind of monsters, or kind of charging in, you know, scrambling up the stairs, then have kind of like a spellcastery kind of character here, and like a sort of, you know, they'd have blasted some spell like out here, busted through some monster's head. So it'd be like sound effects incoming. This is only something that I might put in here. Honestly, like, actually fairly sold on it just being an environment piece, but you never know. Ultimately, all of this just make it like much more noisy. Yo, Maladark Coffee is raiding with a party of one. Thank you. Welcome. Awesome scene. Thanks. Yeah, we started this today. It's going to be the project for the rest of the week at least. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining in. Yeah, so there might be some more beasties, you know, climbing up from the abyss on either side. Again, this is something I could do and also not do at the same time. Ultimately, it's a different focus. Like, it's much more of a character thing than if that's the case. And I guess we could do both, and then it's both, and I could do it with and without. You know? Who knows? I'll see how I feel about it. I'll let it percolate. Let it percolate a bit. And all these abyss monsters have got like multiple eyes. Yeah. Anyway, changes the focus. Sorry, it's just me. I apologize for not bringing 1,000 peeps. Hey, listen, I'm more than happy that you didn't bring 1,000 people, to be honest. It happened to me a good few years ago where someone was streaming League of Legends and I was painting Jhin, and they also played Jhin quite a bit. And I don't know if like one of their viewers like gave them the thing or if it was in their Discord or whatever, but they ended up raiding with like a couple of thousand people while I was painting, and I hadn't been on Twitch that long, and it was too much. I was like, ugh. I drew a flower, which was just a dude with his face skin peeled and stretched as a flower. Oh, nice. Sounds kind of gory though. Yona. Hello everyone. This is looking nice. Thanks. Yeah, we're working from a 3D base today. A base that I made in 3D Coat, and then yeah, using those renders and stuff, kind of built up this mood piece and then cut it all back out into layers again. So, you know, all of these things are essentially just their own flat shapes again. And now we're kind of like working on the inside of the ones closest to camera, kind of building up an impression of the scene, and we'll sort of work our way towards the back, this building that's going to have this building back here. And yeah, it's basically doing our own version of this. Not that gory, honestly. It's more of a surreal thing. No blood involved. I draw weird stuff. Oh, cool. Yeah, like feel free to drop a link to ArtStation or your Twitch or anything like that in the chat. sure everyone would love to see it. I'll definitely look after stream. So yeah, Jonah, that's what we're doing here. Basically making an illustration kind of based on the idea of this one, and just trying out using some 3D again as a starting point, because I obviously mostly do stuff in 2D, but I used to do some 3D. Well, that's sick. Thanks. Appreciate it. Looks very cool. Thank you very much. Okay, so before we go today, I'm just going to update the mask here so that we can continue to use this. Yeah, so here we go. This is basically updating that clown pass with the new geometry. So when I want to select the bridge, right, and all of these intricate bits and paint, say, behind it or do something with it, all I do is select that clown pass. And now, if I've got a new layer and I want to paint behind it, I just invert that selection. I'm going to hide that selection, and then now look how easy it is to do something behind it. Or if I want to do something to it, let's say I want to mess around with the values, so have multiply, for example, and like darken the foreground down more, and let's say, I don't know, I want to put a bit more light focus on the top of the stairs. Sorry, like this. And I want to put like a bit more emphasis on that. Up here, I can do that much more easily. So it enables me to like navigate the illustration much quicker. And so on. So yeah, as we go, I just keep updating this mask with the new information, and then it just it's going to make it hella easier to manage later on. Uh. Nick the artist. Hello. Been alright, busy with the IRL stuff. How's it going? Yeah, good, thank you. Very good. Got a bit of an eye infection. Let's quickly go to eye infection cam. Eye infection. Yeah. Very swollen, gooey eye right now. So enjoying that. This is honestly the best it's been in like the past few days. So have you been streaming much lately? Haven't been super active. I haven't caught one of your streams in ages. Yeah, I've been streaming 3 days a week. For a little while. I think this is like stream number 12 that we're on at the moment. You can watch all of them back on a YouTube. Let me drop the little linksy for you. I made a playlist that's got all the past streams on it. Here that is. And this, as soon as this stream is over, this stream will also be there, so you can watch them back. But yeah, you can watch all of the past streams that we've done back there, and you can also see the beginning of this one. Be able to catch how we're talking about how we made this piece in the beginning, and the plan with it, and the intention going forward. But yeah, that's where we're at. So I'll be back tomorrow, same time, 11 till 3 UK time, here on Twitch and on YouTube. And yeah, you can watch the streams back on that link that I just said. But yeah, that's basically the end of the stream today. That's been our 4-hour block. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Get some rest, reset the brain, and yeah, we'll come back and work on this some more tomorrow. I'm really enjoying this one. So far, this is kind of turning out, how I sort of envisioned it in my mind, which is nice. And yeah, I hope to sort of share more tips and techniques and all that kind of stuff on this one going forward. So tune back in tomorrow. Set to build. Thanks for the follow. I reached my Twitch following limit and was going through channels I was following ages ago. This channel was being recommended on one of those. Oh, awesome. Well, thanks. Thanks for joining. All the best for your eye, dude. Thanks for the stream and wisdom. Thanks for the stream. Looking forward to how this one will turn out. Thanks. Yeah, me too. I'm already really enjoying it. So anyway, thanks again. I'll catch you all later, and have a good evening.